So meta-sketching is obviously a made-up word. It comes from the sketching, of course, and the old Greek meta, that means beyond or extra or something that we don't have a category for. So I've decided to use this expression just to kind of highlight the fact that sketching is way more than just making quick images, quick pictures. We have a lot of evidence that sketching serves as a brilliant tool to externalize our thinking and our ability to generate the ideas. So that's how I kind of came up with the idea or the concept of the meta-sketching, the expression that somehow gives us the space to play with. Throughout my research, I hit the wall, because we all think that we know what the sketch is. You know, the Wikipedia and all the encyclopedia, the Webster, they all define it as a kind of a quick way of expressing something on a paper or using media. But the thing is that we also use the sketch as a term for something that we kind of try, that we conceptualize. And it can apply on music as well, but also on a math or on a theater play. So the sketch is literally something that is not kind of final, that is evolving, that is rather an exploration than an execution of a concept, of a problem that we are trying to solve. So for me, the sketch is literally the process where we explore the idea. And of course, we as designers, we use sketch in its kind of the most known form. That means putting pen on paper. So in our case, the sketch is not a drawing that represents something that we observe, but rather a recording of our thought process. There's a difference between sketch and sketching. Sketch, obviously, whatever it is, can become an artwork. Once you frame it, once you put it on a wall, once you put it in the gallery, it becomes an artwork. If you want or don't want, it's an artwork, it's an artifact. However, the process, how you create that sketch, is way more important than the sketch itself, than the artwork. Because through sketching, we really think. We don't think through that final sketch, through that final drawing, but we think through those gestures and the strokes we put on the paper. So yes, it's an artwork, but the process is way more important in our context. So we came up to a conclusion that the best way to describe what the ideation is to define it as a process of forming an idea. That means it has its own beginning, it has its own end, and it has something that happens between the beginning and the end. And suddenly we have a framework that we can use for further observation, further experimentation, and so on. So the ideation, simply said, is a formation of a new idea. But it makes sense to understand and to accept the fact that the ideation is not just a flash, that eureka moment that gives you, I have this brilliant idea right now. No, it's a process. And once we have a process, we can influence the process. We can work with that process. Mostly because the knowledge we gain from the cognitive psychology and neuroscience, we learn and we understand better that it's not just that visual component that we are working with, the image, the picture itself, but it's also the gestures, the way we make strokes, the way we are using our own body to express ourselves. And also, it's that visual component that we kind of take for granted. However, we also had to kind of learn more about what is really important on that visual aspect, on that visual component. And it turned out that the key feature we are looking for is the ambiguity. Some people call for, the role of the coincidence and randomness, but it's the wrong word. It's the wrong expression. What we are looking for is for an object, for the visual element that allows our brain to interpret it in multiple ways. And that's where the magic happens. That's where the ideation, where the creativity happens. I'm quoting this book here. David Eagleman, he's a neuroscientist, and that's his expression. Our brains are crushing the ambiguity into choices. And that's exactly what we want. We need to have something to make a decision upon. And frankly speaking, all of these decisions are creative decisions. These are design decisions. So in the end, we could describe the process not really in its linear form, but we could express the pillars that this whole process is standing on. And one of them is the ambiguity. That's the first one. We need to have that ambiguity to make those creative, conscious choices. The second thing, we need to interact with a created object, with that drawing. That's where our body is being involved through gestures, through the interaction with the paper. Sometimes we chop the paper with scissors. Sometimes we use cut and paste in a computer. We transform the objects. That's in a way physical interaction. That's how our body contributes to the creative process. And last but not least, it's a verbal component. Why not to use the words directly when we sketch, when we create? Because they help us to understand better what we are creating. I started to play with build those three pillars and all of that knowledge in a practical form, and kicked off a project called METASKETCHES. There's a difference between metasketching as a concept, as a, let's say, philosophy of ideation, and METASKETCHES as the output. So I'm clearly trying to differentiate between those two. So METASKETCHES as a project was an attempt to transfer all of that knowledge into, let's say, a set of the practical exercises. And because I wanted to somehow simulate the production pipeline, production environment, I picked a topic that is really close to my heart, and it's SIDMEAT. So I started to sketch out, and that's really important that these are still sketches, to sketch out some concepts from, let's say, a fictional work designed under the influence of SIDMEAT. I call that exhibition or that project also a love letters to SIDMEAT. So there's a really heavy influence. And I was using a number of techniques that I believed at that moment that I kind of expected that they will contribute to the ideation process. One of them was virtual reality, because virtual reality by, its nature, because all of everything what we do in virtual reality is spatial. It literally gives us the opportunity to use our body in terms of gestures, in terms of expressing ourselves into another level than just drawing on a paper. So I did really rough concept 3D sketches using a tool called Gravity Sketch, and in space using this whole room here. So I had like 3 by 3 meters playground to literally walk through my models, to start the strokes in one corner and finish it in the other one. Just in the sake of finding a new form language, finding a new gesture that I wouldn't be able to do on paper, being limited by the wrist only. So that was one part. And then, of course, there was the other part. I was using a very early text-to-image artificial intelligence models, really rough ones, that they were, from what we have right now, they were very stupid. But there was something kind of interesting on how weird they were. And I used them to generate context-driven textures and color palettes based on my drawings, and I was interacting with them with those as well. So there was that ambiguity I was looking for. So combining these elements with my rough pencil sketching, I put the assembly of all of these components into Clip Studio Paint, which is basically paint application on Mac or PC, and then I created a set of the 24 illustrations, which I posted on various social media just to kind of test if they have any rights to exist at all. And to my surprise, they became almost viral. And I was kind of encouraged to continue creating those and put them in a let's say more tangible format. So it ended up as an exhibition. You know, that was not just the experimentation that I did myself. I also wanted the other people to try what I thought that could be beneficial to their creative process, to their ideation process. I've created a concept of a workshop that would introduce the students and the participants in general, the techniques and, in a way, tips and tricks and processes they would be able to use throughout the ideation process. And we did a couple of the pilot installments of this workshop across a couple of the universities here in Europe. And it turned out that this whole concept is viable. Right now we have already a couple of kind of the formats that we can offer not just to university students but also to professional designers. It goes from couple days to weeks. Right now we have the whole methodology, the whole framework that will allow us to kind of focus on each individual step of the ideation sketching. We spend a lot of time on the verbalization as well. The participants learn the techniques, how to kind of ignite the verbalization process linked to the ideation. And also we do have some exercises on how we use our bodies. Just to give you an example, body storming, we're doing a little bit of the acting as well, pretending we are objects we are designing and so on. So it's kind of a somehow funny workshop because it is usually not what the students experience throughout the regular kind of academic year. So this one is touching more their ability to think and to leverage the knowledge they already have rather than gain the new knowledge, gain the new kind of set of the textbooks to memorize. So this is literally about developing and building the ability to use what you already have. In general, nor practical production environment, nor designers or architects, also the academic world, we don't kind of pay enough attention to this component. And it became even more obvious with the latest kind of improvement or evolution in technology, namely artificial intelligence, 3D modeling tools, virtual reality. All of that kind of removes that stress and kind of a cost of the time requiring to execute our ideas. So we're kind of shifting our focus from the design execution to design ideation, design exploration. And that gives me somehow the positive feedback on the work we have done so far. So as we started with those workshops, we could collect also the feedback, not just from the academic world, but also from, let's say, practical professionals, designers, architects, and so on. And just the fact that we're registering that there's a demand of that type of, workshops or skill training, skill practicing. So we think that at least this part is really hitting the nail by its head, that we did something right. So the validation, the reactions, so far so good, but there's a lot more to do. One of the biggest challenges is to kind of really integrate this whole knowledge into systematic education, into production pipelines and so on. And that will require knowledge, from the process planner, for car design companies and so on. We need some support from the academic world as well. We need academic workers who are skilled in, writing the curriculums based on the knowledge. And I want to experiment more, both in analog and digital work, with all of these techniques we have developed, because I do observe that they have a kind of transformative effect on myself and on the others as well. So I want to continue that journey because I do feel that it is moving me to, you know, to another kind of levels, maybe to the better understanding of the word as well. And that's the whole thing. It's not about just, you know, to sketch better, to design better. It's about better understanding this word.